everyone. Welcome to the mobile security class. Today, we will talk about telecom security. This topic dates back to more than 30 years ago, I guess, which is much older than most of us. So, in today's topic, we're gonna talk about lots of history systems, which we will not spend a lot of time because we are more concerned about the latest development and about the security for the latest system. So before we jump into the technical content, I just want to make an announcement that the homework 1 is out. And also let me know if you have any questions. We can also chat about it briefly now. Then we will talk about the brief history for telecom security, basically how telecom system evolved from the first generation to the fourth generation. And then we will discuss about security problems for modern telecom systems. Next, we will prepare for the project presentation. I will give a template about the first project presentation, so it's going to be helpful for you to prepare for the presentation 2 weeks later. And if you still didn't get a topic or still didn't find the team, you're welcome to talk to the instructor. Thank you. So homework 1 is out. Like we have mentioned in the past few classes, it's more about designing a malware that will be able to exploit the intent interaction between 2 different applications. So we provided the reading materials for the homework, and I believe these reading materials will give you some hints about how to design your malware. Of course, we will follow the policy not to attack others. Basically, you are only doing experiments with your own machine or with your own simulators. Yeah, if you have any questions about the first assignment, feel free to email me. Now let's take a look at the basics of telecommunication security. First, to understand the security for the telecommunication systems, we need to understand the different security concerns from the different players. For example, in the mobile ecosystem, we have the mobile users, the carriers, and the governments, several different players in the ecosystem. And each of the different players might have different concerns for security and privacy. And in the following slides, we'll discuss about the difference of their concerns and what are the major concerns from the different players. Next, we will check out how security concerns and techniques have evolved along with the infrastructures. We know that telecom has evolved a lot from the first generation to the fourth, even fifth generation, and the infrastructure changed a lot. And of course, the standard makers, they also try to design better security solutions for telecom. So the techniques change a lot, and because the techniques also change, users' security and privacy concerns might also change. We will cover these areas to have a brief history. Now let's go through the evolution, and we'll start with some of the basic concerns that different players may have. First, users really have different security goals. No user or entity should be able to build calls on another user's behalf. And of course, stolen mobile devices should not be able to make calls. You might have lots of important information, of course, in the stolen mobile device. But the first thing you might want to worry is that whether you'll get a really high bill after you lost your phone. And the network should not record calls and only provide enough information to perform billing functions. So users want to have privacy even though they are using the mobile telecom services. And no records of digital service usage should be made. So basically, users will not want the carrier to know what websites they visit and what apps they are using, especially about specific data inside these websites and apps. Then, of course, the voice eavesdropping should be impossible, so nobody can hear users' phone calls. That's the ideal case. Now, of course, with a smartphone, users' location might be tracked on the phone, and mobile users hope their location should be private until they want to disclose it, except in emergencies. And device user should not be identifiable until disclosed. I know in many countries it's not possible. Like some of the countries, they ask you to have an ID card when you buy a phone number, so that the device and the phone number will be bundled with the user's identity. There are lots more security goals you might have as a user, and if you have other interesting thoughts, feel free to email me. Then how about providers? How about the carrier security goals? First, which is most important, because they want to make money from the business, so they hope the communication service billing should be correctly managed. And they hope all types of fraud should be prevented and mechanisms should be updated as necessary. And they hope to have correct naming and addressing of devices. Of course, the routing function must be secure. And providers should be able to add services functions and provide desired security for them. Providers' goal is basically to keep the service running, and they can get the correct amount of money from these services. And how about the government? Government security goals are a little bit different. Sometimes we see that the big brother is watching over you. For example, they hope the location information must be provided to emergency services. And they want to have robust infrastructure so that it could be available in emergencies, especially, for example, in the flood. For example, what's happening in Houston is really terrible. And especially if the infrastructure is not robust, then people cannot dial 911. And government hope communication and information must be accessible to law enforcement. We heard about many law cases that the government want Apple to unlock a victim's phone or unlock a suspect's phone. Well, we don't know whether they should be able to do that or not. Another goal is that they want to have useful measures to monitor and protect the essential assets and infrastructures. After presenting all the different security goals for several different parties, we can tell that sometimes the security goals work well with each other, but sometimes the security goals from different parties will be conflicts with each other. So what's your opinion about it? How do you think is a good balance between the security goals of several different parties? That's a good thing to think about, and I also definitely welcome discussion about these parts. Now let's walk through some history to see how these goals were met, actually were not met. First, many years ago, we have the early cell systems we call first generation. The most well-known system is AMPS, Advanced Mobile Phone System. When I say advanced, it's not really advanced, but it was very innovative in the time during the time it was introduced in 1978, and FCC first used it and approved it in 1983. Much older than all of us. And 1G generation first use is the cell structure and also its analog. You might have seen these pictures of very, very big mobile phones. They are very expensive, they are robust, but they provide really, really simple services. And they don't really provide much security. The only security they provide is the user device authentication and call authentication. And it's very simple authentication. So for example, device just provides the 10-digit phone number, telephone number, and 32-bit serial number. And if the phone number or the serial number matches, connection is made. So in case, like it's only 10 digits or 32 bits. So basically, if you are able to guess any of the numbers, you will be able to try to impersonate a user, a device. And no encryption is provided. Besides what I said, can you think about other vulnerabilities? Feel free to discuss with me. Okay, so 1G is really without any security solutions. How about the second generation? The major difference between the first generation and the second generation is that they switch from analog to digital. So basically, this means we will have better mechanism for authentication and authorization, while also mandated comparing to the previous things. And people realize the weakness of the previous matching protocol. Because if you can just guess the number and try the number, you can impersonate a device. People also learn from the experience of the first generation, and also because they use digital technologies, this means that people can encrypt the voice for the over-the-air transmission. So it's more difficult for other people to listening to your calls secretly. The second generation's infrastructure also become more complicated. First, they have mobile stations, which are the phones, and the mobile stations will talk to the base station, and the base station, when the mobile station connects to the base station will talk to the network management to let the network management know that a new device is added into the network. And all the data will be sent to the subscriber and terminal equipment database for management. We have mentioned that because the 2G use digital, so we can build more authentication and authorization for the 2G. For more details, we will introduce now. First, 2G aim to have secure access. So they introduce the user authentication for billing and fraud prevention. And also, they use a challenge response protocol based on subscriber specific authentication key. So for the challenge response protocol, it usually means the service can ask a difficult question that only the device can answer, and the device will answer the question to prove its identity. Besides the secure access, 2G also aim to have control and data signal confidentiality. So they try to protect voice, data, and control. What we mean by the control is, for example, the number you dialed. And also they encrypt a radio link so that attackers cannot easily listen to your phone calls. 2G also considers anonymity. So instead of using the subscriber ID, which is IMSI, so they use the like temporary identifier so that people cannot track the users or identify cards. This is a big improvement over 1G. However, 2G is still not secure. Many people figure out different side channels to identify the keys used for encryption. So when we talk about side channel, we mean that some channels that will disclose information even though it was supposed deployed for other purpose. For example, sometimes the lights, like for our classrooms, we probably have a smart switch. So when nobody is here, the lights will be off. So if you observe the channel of whether the light is on or off, you can know whether there's users or students, teachers in the classroom or not. There are lots of interesting side channels attacks in security areas, and if you want to learn more, you can go to this website to see more details. Besides side channel attacks, there are lots of in-network attacks. You may wonder that, okay, didn't you tell me that 2G adopt lots of authentication and authorizations? Yes, but they only adopt the authentication and authorization and also the encryption partially. For example, the transmission are only encrypted from the mobile station to the base station. So if there's any attacker between the BTS and MSC, for example, they will be able to actually still look at all the data because that part of the link is not encrypted, and they can even modify the data. And the signal network is completely unsecured. We don't have time to talk about details for signal network, but you can definitely search it around if you want to learn more. And even worse, attackers might get access to HLR easily, which means it can retrieve all the important keys. After 2G security solutions were first proposed, people also realized it's not 100% secure, so there are still many new security problems. Then researchers also deploy more secure solutions. For example, people start to care about GPS security because it's a very important protocol in 2G. So GPS have the same authentication and key agreement architecture. Someone might think GPS is 2.5G, so I also agree with that because they did have some new development compared to the second generation. And besides, encryption also extends future into a network core. So basically, more links in network are protected. And also, GPS updated encryption algorithms to be more robust against the brute forcing attacks. Brute forcing means you can just try to submit for example, when you don't know a password, you just try to submit easy password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and always try until you get the right password. So that's why updating encryption algorithm is always good. Researchers and also industry people are also deploying SIEM security toolkit, which is used to establish secure channel from SIEM to a network server, and also extend the GSM security to sensitive applications. Now, for example, if you are running some e-commerce applications, you will get the security from the SIM card security toolkit. And also you're gonna have secure remote SIM and short message management. These are all good developments. Then time comes the 3G. 3G is considered to be the start of the modern telecom services, and is still widely used even now. 3G makes switching and also provide more short message services and also location services. 3G also have several major protocols that are being used. There are also other developments which we don't have time to really cover, but we just want to know what's different for the security when 2G evolved into 3G. We look at the basic infrastructure, it looks like not much different, right, from what we saw for the second 2G, right? However, in 3G, people did have lots of redesign. Of course, the 3G security model still builds on GSM, but the protection are extended a lot. For example, there are also protection against active attacks. Besides just encrypt the links and authenticate users, 3G also adopts integrity checking to protect critical signaling. Remember that we mentioned in 2G there are actually no protection for signaling at all, but now we do have new things here. And for 3G we have enhanced mutual authentication, and also we will refresh the keys every time. So remember that in 2G, only the device is authenticated, but not the base station. So people can just fake a base station, but in 3G, mutual authentication was proposed. And also, even better, 3G supports the key freshness check. So why the freshness of the key is important? Because sometimes attacker can just try to reuse the key or replay a result to try to fool the system. So if you have some mechanism to make sure the key can be refreshed, then it's very less likely for attackers to be able to replay the results and fool the system. Besides the new kinds of protections, the encryption also enhanced. We have even better, stronger algorithms for encryption, and also we have longer keys, and encryption also even deeper into network comparing to the 2.5G. And also 3G's design is flexible, so it has potential for secure global roaming. So 3G definitely has more authentication schemes than the 2G systems. However, we talk about lots of good things for the 3G security, but there are still lots of ways you can attack the 3G system. We'll briefly introduce some of the attack scenarios for 3G. And I would suggest you to read the survey paper, which is a really good survey paper. So for the 3G attack, the first dimension of attacks is based on level of physical access to the network. So attackers can consider several different levels. First, can attacker access the air interface with physical devices? They will also consider access the cables connecting 3G network switches. And they also consider access sensitive components of 3G networks. And the fourth level is access links connecting the internet and the 3G network core. The fifth level is to access internet servers or cross-network services connected to 3G networks. So we can see that there are many different levels. But remember, for security, attackers only consider the weakest link, weakest level. I remember I attended some talks from from an officer, from a researcher. He actually said 20 years ago he was actually asked by the government officer to trying to help them to protect the cables um, under their buildings. So basically, that government office have two buildings, like a little bit like 10 meters away from each other, and the two buildings have a cable that connect to each other. So they were concerned that some attackers will dig into the ground and trying to attach to the cable and listen to their communications. Well, so the researcher actually went to the office like in 8 a.m. So not so many people actually start working, and actually the server room, the door is not even locked, so anybody who show up on Tuesday like 8 a.m. can just walk into the server and basically dump all the data they have. So that's a good example to think about. So attackers will probably just care about the weakest link. And if we're just too concerned about some attacks that the bar really high, that's probably not so useful as thinking about what attackers can do with the minimum amount of efforts. Most of attackers will just chase the low-hanging fruits. So that's why some of security solutions, if we have some basic solutions to improve the bar of the attacks, then we can do really good job to block lots of breaches, because attackers will not try if they just try the first simple attacks and it doesn't work. They will just stop trying. They will just go to other easy targets. In the survey paper, they also mentioned several other attack scenarios. The second dimension for the attack categories, like we can think about interceptions or replay attacks. That's why I said the freshness of keys are very important. And also think about modification of resources, and also denial of services, and also interruption. The third dimension are the attack means. So whether attackers use database attacks, or they use message-based attacks, or they attack a service based on the service logics. Summarize these things up. 3G do have lots of security problems. And especially the communication protocol have lots of attacks possible. For example, for the GPRS communication protocol suite, attackers can create and destroy user sessions. They can handle the quality of service parameters, and they can update sessions for users in new locations, and even more. Attackers can also launch anomalous attacks. For example, they can give incorrect message type or length fields to cause memory exhaustion or buffer overflow. Sometimes the code will also written in a not very secure way, so that when incorrect message type or length fields were input into the system might have a crash or even have buffer overflow. And also the recursive GTP encapsulation can cause packets or session spoofing. Attackers can also launch resource starvation attacks. So they can use the package data protocol to create context flood. So basically similar to the TCP sync flood. Have you guys heard about TCP sync flood? So basically you send out the shake request, but you never respond. So the system really trying to respond, but if you don't send the final answer, then the system will have a big problem because it need to handle so much traffic. Okay, that's the end for the 3G security. Now let's think about when we come from 3G to the so-called 4G and also to the real 4G. 4G now represents the next generation in the cellular communication, and the best thing for the 4G is really the fast speed. And WiMAX and LTE are released and they are competing with each other, but they are not really 4G, but so-called 4G. So currently 4G is a combination of marketing speak and future tech. So even for now, the 4G we are using are not really 4G. And people are commenting that. So the real 4G has not yet been developed. And how to strike a balance between practical applications and the necessary security levels also is a very challenging problem. So now let's take a look at what if the real 4G is deployed. There are still many security problems, like people can still listen to your calls in the unencrypted SIP. And also many attacks are still possible. If these attacks are possible in the internet, they are still possible in the 4G. For example, the DDoS attack and spam and spoofing. And many more will likely to emerge. So, and besides that, 4G billing will also be a very interesting security problem, because attackers might still be able to replay and to do man-in-the-middle attacks. So you might think about, okay, we have said that during under 3G we already have key freshness, but key freshness can only protect certain messages. There are still some messages that can be replayed, for example, the billing message. So it's always difficult to design a secure system. 4G also exposes users to tracking, because traffic analysis are possible with the SIP protocols. So we talk about from 1G to 4G. However, remember that not all the services are using 4G, not even the so-called 4G. But near all of us are still using protocols based on the 3G standard today. And most of the systems were upgraded from 2G and are still backward compatible. And many voice calls, especially many voice calls, are still handled by 2G subsystems. So these secure protocols which we know are broken are still supported by most systems. And this actually caused lots of problems. For example, because many systems are 2G compatible, if attackers just trying to make a service from the 3G to 2G, and then it can still do lots of the dangerous attacks from 2G. And this like lack of update systems cause lots of problems for us. So next we'll talk about interesting effects of telecom evolutions. Especially, we'll do analysis of short message subsystem and interesting attacks. And also, we will talk about rogue base stations and man-in-the-middle attacks. First, before we jump into the attack details, let's talk about how short message really works. Short messaging services were invented in 1985 and outlined by 3 types of functionality. So the short message mobile terminated and short message mobile originated. and also short message cell broadcast. Basically, the short message evolved a lot. For the first short message is in 1992, and in 2000 years it's already like 10 to the 7th, and now we have even more short message every month. It keeps increasing every month, but now maybe it slowed down a little bit because people can use lots of different communication softwares to send message to each other. So how short message will ever deliver to your device? So first, your phone will talk to the short message service center. All external short message entities will also talk to that. Sometimes we will get alert. Basically, that's this kind of message are from the external short messaging entities. So when short message was sent from the mobile device or the external short message entity, the short message service center will try to route the message to HLR, and if the destination is not reachable, they will put it in a message queue. So that's how you don't lose your message. And after a while, and they will try again, and HLR message, okay, this user is actually and the short message another center. So basically, the short message service center will send the message to a different message center, and the message center will talk to the VRR, see if X is active. And VRR will provide even more detailed information about where the device is. And then the short message center, the second short message center will talk to the base station, and the base station will send a message to the other phone, the destination. If not, if VRR doesn't have information, the message center will send broadcast information to different base stations, and the different base station will try to page the device, and device will reply, so and do authentications and get the message. We see the interesting processing for queuing the short message. So the queuing are finite, and the message can be lost, because if you have too much data, then maybe the memory for the short message service center cannot hold all this. So the dropping and overflow management were raised by carriers. They always try to propose a good protocol so that you don't lose lots of message, so that you are still happy with their services. And the mobile station queuing also finite, and batteries are small. And if the message queuing is full, HRR tells short message service center if it's unavailable, and battery can be drained. So remember that the battery of the mobile station can be drained. So that's why people can have targeted short message denial services. How about just flood the user with lots of short messages? First, it could probably have buffer overflow attacks, because with enough flooding, the short message service center will drop valid message, and some device will automatically delete previously read message when they run out of storage, which is pretty bad. But especially in the early age, the phone don't have lots of storage. And the DDoS can cause valid messages to be delayed beyond useful lifetime. For example, meeting reminders are useless after meetings, and valid messages are barrier in the short message flood. Also, battery can be drained. People have more development for the voice calls as well, and voice and short message. I will be sharing some channels as well. So basically, the short message delivery sometimes also take up the channels for the voice traffic. So that's why the results are always limited. So SMS and voice have a limit. So basically, if you have SMS flooding, and also it works as a DDoS against the voice calls, so you might not be able to get the voice call if attacker sends you lots of messages. And this is basically a demonstration about how voice and short message are sharing the resources. Of course, nowadays we have more resources on the smartphones, but previously this had been always a big problem for even 5 years ago. Okay, now we know like how can attacker DDoS a device. How about how to DDoS a city? How much short message traffic need to be sent to really DDoS a large metro area? So to do that, we first know how to compute the short message capacities. So these are related to number of cell towers and also how many sectors per tower we have, and how many SDCCH we have per sector, and how much capabilities each of the center have. For example, for Washington DC, it's about 900 messages per hour for each of the SDCCH, and it's 8, 12, about 24 SDCCH per sector, and also it's 40 cell towers, 3 sector per tower. So now you can calculate how much data you need to DDoS a city. Well, it's only 2.8 Mbps. So besides message and also the voice calls, cellular data is a very important service. So it acts as a gateway to the internet. So mobile device can connect to the open network through basically through cellular network, which is a closed network. So how does it work? You can see more details from this infrastructure. Basically, you can see the process is quite similar to the short message, right? That's why similarly, attacker can also launch database DDoS attack. Because establishing a data connection is so costly, but most of the carrier have timeouts to prevent frequent relocation and reestablishment due to manual variations, and timers can be as long as 5 seconds. So if an adversary establishes 32 data sessions in a sector, they can DDoS everyone else. It's even more scary for the data connection. We can also compute the capacity for the data connections, and it's only 252 kbps. So the order of magnitude less work to deny data traffic compared to SMS DDoS on voice. Wow, it's very easy to jam the traffic. Now we talk about this kind of DDoS attack. What do you think are the best way to solve the DDoS attack? One way is to extend your service capability, so have more servers and more stations to take care of users. But of course, attackers can always try to drain your resources. So other ways could include challenging responses, trying to tell the traffic patterns of the attackers and the benign user, so that you can block the DDoS attackers and still preserve the service for the users. We can also think more about this area as well. The final attack category I want to talk about are the rock base stations and man-in-the-middle attacks. What is a rock base station? So this is an adversary that can deploy a rogue base station that attempts to spoof the service provided by a valid base station and attract users for various reasons. As we have mentioned, it's possible to launch a man-in-the-middle attacks on the 2G and 3G mobile connections, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. And the rogue base station attacks actually applies to many protocols, and also it's very cheap to build a rogue base station. Why rogue base station can be established? The most important thing is lake authentications. For example, GPRS and EDGE use 2G GSM authentications. And for example, remember that we said devices are in 2G authentication. Devices are required to prove their identity to the base station, but the base station is not required to prove its identity to the device. So that's why a rogue station is possible because of the non-encryption support. So because the device don't have to be authenticated, so users might just accidentally connect to a base station and they don't know the identity of the base station. Even worse, GPRS and EDGE devices, they are required to support null encryption, so plain text. So that's why BTS can only offer to support null encryption, and most of the devices will accept the offer and send data in the clear. That's why the rogue base station can get all the traffic in the clear. Another thing we have mentioned that many of the devices, even though they are using 3G, also called 4G, they are backward compatible with 2G, so they can be configured to fall back to 2G and 2.5G. Especially sometimes the network has some troubles in the rural areas, so the service can be downgraded to 2G or 2.5G. Of course, besides the natural cases to downgrade the system, if someone jamming UMTS, HSPA frequencies of certain channels, they can also downgrade the 3G system to 2.5G. Then they can build a rogue base station and can build man-in-the-middle attacks. Let's see more details about how rogue station can work and how can they launch man-in-the-middle attacks. So, attacker can position the base station in a range of a target, and you might be wondering, okay, so if I'm just to put my devices in my apartment, and the other devices might be far from my apartment, then I'm safe, right? However, the range of view can be improved by using high gain directional antenna or amplifier, so they can amplify their signals to reach your devices. Setting up a rogue BTS is really simple. This is the setup from the Black Hat 2011 talks. Basically, you just need to have laptop, the power adapter, and a base station, and hub and switch, and also internet connection. And it's very cheap. I think they claim they can build it below $200. Of course, I think they didn't count the laptop. How to defend against the rogue BTS attacks? So major modification will be needed to make this protocol secure, and higher level protections can be used to secure data against the man-in-the-middle attacks, just to try to encrypt all the links. And they should be provided, the devices should be configured by the manufacturer not to fall back to 2G and 2.5G. Before we wrap up for today's class, I want to talk more about the projects. We have mentioned a little bit about this, but it might be better to refresh our memory for the goals of the project. So the Course project basically provides an opportunity to apply topics from class to an in-depth study of the specific topic area. So it's not just a broad survey of what has been done, but it's a chance to do something novel and make real contribution to advance the state of art. And also, I hope the project can provide you an experience with end-to-end project. For example, from the design, from hypothesis, and also from the experimentations, and then do analysis and do the presentations of the process and results, so that you have an idea about how research works, and also how can you produce a good security solution. Well, after 2 weeks, we're gonna have an intro presentation for the project. So basically, the presentation will be about the project area and the potential project topic, and also background and related work. So basically, we want to hear about how do you define the problem, why is it interesting, what has been done so far, what questions have not yet been answered. And the presentation should include figures to illustrate the problem idea, the approach, and others, especially in a straightforward way. For example, you should not use lots of text, but it's good to have some illustration, to have some figures, to demonstrate your proposed solutions. The solution doesn't need to be 100 complete at this moment, but we can always find, but we need to figure out the directions you want to try. For the implementation, please create a video, post it privately to YouTube, and send the link to me. And you should limit your videos to 10 minutes, and all team members must participate in the presentation. And we'll provide a template, but feel free to do your own presentation. So basically, first, this is just a brief template. Sorry, the template is a little bit weird. I'll fix the problem. So you have the title, and you have the project title, and you have the background working area. You have the rough ideas about what you do. And finally, that's our deliverables for gradings. The presentation, the grade, will be based on first whether you include everything that we ask you to include, and also whether you use the time allotted to do some good work, and how do you balance the presenters across the team, how do you actually collaborate with each other to make a good presentation, and of course, how clear your presentation is. For the reports, the grade will be based on first how clear the presentation of the project specs, and also whether you include all necessary components, and also the use of figures and data when appropriate. So if you are still hunting for project ideas, I'm creating a list of project ideas and post it on the Google group. So if you still didn't join the Google group, please email me. And if you have a project idea, it may be beneficial to discuss with me before going forward. So that's the end of today's class. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Thank you. And the next lecture, we're gonna present a tutorial about Android tips and analysis tools. Thank you.